We worked all night saving her company. At sunrise, she smiled. Coffee before round two. Sunlight hit the rolling whiteboard before it hit me. Adrian Foster's name was still circled 3 times in red, boxed between timestamps, publisher names, and one question I had written sometime after 3 in the morning. Who benefits if Claire resigns? My laptop hummed on the coffee table. I had fallen asleep sitting upright on Claire Morgan's sectional with a black marker still in my hand. Across the penthouse, Claire stood beside the evidence board in a blue blouse and dark trousers, reading something on her phone while dawn turned the city windows gold behind her. She looked over. You slept 23 minutes. I checked the clock. Wasteful. You were holding a marker. Efficient. That almost earned a smile. Then her phone vibrated again. Whatever she read erased it. The crisis had started 10 hours earlier at Morgan Clean Logistics' Rooftop investor mixer. An anonymous finance blog had accused Claire of diverting clean energy grants into offshore accounts. The accusation was false. That barely mattered. Adrian Foster, a board director who had spent 6 months trying to weaken Claire's authority, only needed the board frightened enough to force her out at Monday's emergency vote. If Claire resigned or was suspended, Foster's faction could seize temporary operating control and push through the restructuring plan she had blocked twice. He did not need a conviction. He needed fear. The board met at noon Monday. The rumor was already spreading through finance blogs. Morgan's internal investigation could not finish that fast. Waiting was not an option. Suing the publishers was not an option either. By the time lawyers got a hearing, automated newsletters could repeat the allegation 1,000 times. I had a practical reason to be in Claire's penthouse before romance had anything to do with it. I was her retained crisis communications consultant. 3 weeks earlier, she had hired me to protect Morgan Clean Logistics during a controversial expansion into electric freight infrastructure. If a manufactured scandal destroyed her company while I was on retainer, my professional reputation went with it. So when the rumor broke, we left the rooftop mixer, brought the evidence to her apartment, rolled a whiteboard into the living room, and worked through the night. Nothing mysterious had happened. We had simply been too busy to sleep. Claire lowered her phone. Miles found something. That woke me faster than caffeine. I stood. What? She handed me the screen. Miles Cooper was my assistant, media monitoring specialist, and the only man I knew who could sound judgmental through a spreadsheet. His message contained 3 lines. Northbridge Advisory. Baltic Signal Media. Talon. Same pitch language across 9 outlets. I crossed to my laptop. Coffee. Claire pointed toward the kitchen. Already there. A black mug waited beside the espresso machine. No sugar, no cream. I looked at her. You remembered. You complained about sweetened coffee for 7 minutes in Denver. I was conducting a quality review. You called vanilla syrup a hostile takeover. Accurate. This time she smiled. Small. Enough. I called Miles. He answered before the first ring finished. You sound terrible. You sound cheerful. Fix that. I slept. Show off. Claire pulled a chair closer. Miles said, I contacted all 12 sites that ran the allegation. 9 ignored me. 2 said it arrived through a syndicated research pitch. 1 editor sent us the original email after Priya issued a preservation request. Sender? Baltic Signal Media. Original attachment? Preserved. Council has it? Good. No hacking. No miracle. Evidence from someone who had actually received the pitch. What connects Baltic to Northbridge? Public corporate records. Baltic's billing address matches a Northbridge European subsidiary. Circumstantial. I know, accurate nouns. Claire glanced at me. You trained him too? He was damaged when I found him. Miles ignored that. There's more. Morgan paid Northbridge $48,000 last month for narrative risk simulation. Claire went still. Who approved it? Strategic Review Committee. Adrian chaired that committee. I raised a hand before either of us overreached. Committee authorization is not personal authorization. Claire nodded immediately. Right. Miles continued. Priya is preserving the approval trail. Priya Nair, Morgan's general counsel. Claire leaned toward the phone. Miles, send Priya the full publisher contact log. Ask finance to preserve every Northbridge invoice, approval, expense code, and committee authorization from the last year. A pause. That came from you? Claire's eyebrow rose. Does that surprise you? No, ma'am. Good answer. She ended the call. I looked at her. You didn't ask permission. You were drinking coffee. Dangerous precedent? I'm the CEO. Allegedly. Her eyes narrowed. Then she laughed. 5 seconds of relief. The night before had started under string lights. The rooftop mixer was supposed to reassure investors before Morgan's clean freight expansion. City lights below us, sparkling water, expensive suits pretending not to watch one another. I had been near the glass railing with soda and lime when Claire appeared beside me. Tell me you're not working. I'm monitoring. That's working. I'm observing for free. You charge me by the hour. Then I'm observing professionally. She shook her head. Claire was 10 years older than me and had the irritating ability to look composed, even when 3 investors were waiting to corner her. More importantly, she could read a room. She noticed the whisper before I did. A lender's CFO stopped mid-sentence and checked his phone. Then another guest. Then another. Screens lit across the rooftop. Claire's own phone vibrated. She read the headline once. Morgan Clean Logistics CEO linked to offshore green grant accounts. Her fingers tightened around the glass. Don't respond, I said. She looked at me. I wasn't going to. Good. Ethan. Yes? Don't sound surprised. Before I could answer, Adrian Foster approached. Gray suit, silver tie. No hurry. That was what made him dangerous. He never behaved like the man starting a fire. He behaved like the man arriving to explain why the building had always been unsafe. Claire, he said, I'm sorry. She put her phone face down on the cocktail table. For what? The article. You read quickly. So did half the room. His eyes moved to me. Perhaps your consultant can advise whether immediate transparency would help. Bait. Claire knew it. She lifted her sparkling water. Perhaps. Nothing else. No defense. No panic. Adrian smiled. I understand several directors are discussing an emergency meeting. Then I'll see them there. He walked away. Claire watched him disappear. He knew before I did. Maybe he reached us 30 seconds after publication. Still maybe. Accurate nouns? Exactly. That was when I called Miles. By 2 a.m, Claire's living room had become a war room. By sunrise, we had our first pattern. At 9 Sunday morning, Claire tried to call one of her largest investors. I stopped her before she pressed dial. She looked at my hand. Then at me. Explain. Not yet. I'm not hiding. I didn't ask you to hide. You just stopped the call. Because we have a publisher trail and a vendor link, but no approval chain. If you call now, you answer questions with partial evidence. Claire folded her arms. I built this company by speaking before problems become headlines. That works when you know the problem. I know the problem. You know what one article says? Her jaw tightened. I turned my laptop toward her. The monitoring graph showed 27 mentions. Not 200, not 2,000. 27. The story isn't breaking organically, I said. It's being pushed into specific outlets and waiting for larger syndication. We speak too early. We amplify it ourselves. Claire stared at the graph. The investor number remained on her screen. Her thumb hovered. Then she locked the phone. Face down. 2 hours. I nodded. 2 hours. If we don't have more, we call. Agreed. She walked toward the kitchen. Water? Coffee. You've had 5. That was not an answer. She came back with ice water and set it beside me. Condensation slid down the glass. Drink. I looked at her. CEO voice. Human with functioning kidneys voice. I drank. At 11:30, Priya called. Claire put her on speaker. We have the Northbridge approvals, Priya said. The $48,000 expense was approved through the Strategic Review Committee's delegated budget. Adrian's signature? Claire asked. Electronic approval under the committee chair credential. I shook my head. Priya saw it on video. Exactly. She said, it ties the authorization to his credential, not necessarily his hand. Compliance is preserving authentication records. Claire asked, can Monday's vote still proceed? Yes. The board can assess confidence in your leadership before the investigation finishes. What it cannot do responsibly is make a misconduct finding against Foster without evidence. The board would not wait for certainty. That was Adrian's window. Priya continued. Your job tomorrow is not proving every element of sabotage. It's showing the allegation against you is unverified, that distribution appears coordinated, and that removing you before review is complete creates governance risk. Claire wrote the sentence down, not because she needed someone to think for her, because she was building her own case. What about Foster's restructuring motion? If you're suspended, his faction can request interim control. Claire closed the legal pad. That's what he wants. There it was, plain enough for anyone listening. Adrian did not need to prove Claire stole $1. He needed enough fear to get her out of the chair. Then he could sit someone else in it. Claire's phone vibrated. She checked it. Morgan's pre-market indication was down 1.8%. Not catastrophic. Enough to make directors nervous. Her eyes moved toward the investor call list. Then my phone rang. Miles, you both owe me breakfast? What did you find? A second publisher sent the original pitch. Same Baltic employee, same attached memo, but the memo references unpublished Morgan board language. Claire leaned closer. What language? Operational consolidation under engineering-led interim oversight. Her face changed. Adrian used that phrase in closed session. When? Thursday. Miles said. The pitch went out Friday morning. That mattered. The smear package contained wording from a confidential board discussion. Still not proof of who leaked it, but the circle had narrowed. Priya told Miles to preserve the file. Claire looked at the investor list, then pushed it away. Okay. I raised an eyebrow. What? You were right about waiting. I picked up my water. I'm recording that. You will not. I have witnesses. By Sunday afternoon, the first attack was slowing. 2 major finance aggregators refused to syndicate the rumor without corroboration. One publisher added an editor's note. Claire called her largest investors, not to defend herself, but to tell them an independent review was active and audited grant records would be released Monday. She sounded like a CEO managing uncertainty, not a defendant begging to be believed. At 4, she ended the final call and leaned against the kitchen island. Food, I said. Another order? Medical observation. You're not a doctor. I've read several menus. Claire opened the refrigerator. Olives, yogurt, and a lemon. A feast. You live like this? I don't live here. You know what I mean? I own cereal. That explains a lot. She ordered sandwiches. We ate at opposite ends of the sectional while the skyline turned orange beyond the windows. For 15 minutes, nobody said Adrian Foster's name. Claire told me Miles once emailed a client a media plan titled final_use_this_1_3. My phone immediately buzzed. Miles, I know when you're talking about me. Claire stared at it. How? He has problems. Her laugh came easier this time. Warmth after pressure. Then, at 7:13 Sunday evening, the second attack hit. Claire's phone buzzed. Then mine. Then the monitoring dashboard turned red. A grainy rooftop photograph filled the city's largest corporate gossip site. Claire and I stood close beside the railing. I had one hand braced on the back of a chair so someone could pass behind me. The crop removed everyone around us. The headline supplied the implication. Morgan CEO's midnight strategy, young consultant, private penthouse, falling stock. Claire read it once. No reaction. Then she walked to the whiteboard and erased the lower right corner with 3 hard strokes. I closed my laptop. Claire. She put the eraser down. This is different. Yes. He's moving from finance to character. Yes. My board doesn't need proof to be embarrassed. No. She crossed to the window. Her phone screen stayed lit in her hand. A draft email was open. I could see the subject, resignation, effective immediately. My chest tightened, but I kept my voice level. No. She turned. You don't know what I was going to do. I know what the subject line says. If I step aside before the market opens, the company may avoid another sell-off. And Foster gets exactly what he needed. This isn't about beating Foster. No, it's about whether you resign because a cropped photograph made you ashamed of hiring me. Her jaw tightened. That isn't what I said. Then don't behave like it is. Silence. Too sharp. I knew it as soon as the words left me. Claire looked back toward the skyline. I did not apologize with a speech. I rotated my laptop toward her. Look at the timestamp. She did. The photograph had been posted 16 minutes after Northbridge received Priya's preservation notice. Her eyes narrowed. That fast? Yes. Retaliation. Possibly? She looked at me. Accurate nouns. Good. The resignation draft remained open for 3 seconds. Then Claire deleted it. One action. Enough. What do? We don't defend the photograph. Agreed. We find out why it exists. My phone rang. Miles sounded breathless. I have the photographer. Claire turned toward the speaker. How? The image has a cropped agency watermark in the original scrape. Sentinel Executive Intelligence. Licensed private investigators. Corporate surveillance. What connects Sentinel to Northbridge? Nothing yet. Then don't say it. Accurate nouns, Miles muttered. Claire was already typing. Priya should preserve Sentinel invoices. Calling her now. An hour later, counsel found something better than speculation. Morgan's strategic review records contained a Northbridge reimbursement request from the prior month. One line read, Executive Risk Observation Services, Sentinel Intelligence. The approval trail used Adrian's committee chair credential. Again, the rooftop photograph likely came from the same surveillance vendor Northbridge had billed to Morgan. Still not final attribution. But the question changed. Why was a board-controlled vendor surveilling the CEO at a company event? Claire stood beside the whiteboard. No response to the gossip site. Correct. No denial. Correct. No explanation about your being here. Correct. We address vendor governance. I pointed the marker at her. You're getting alarmingly good at my job. I'm preventing yours from becoming theatrical. Impossible. At 10, Priya joined by video. Miles appeared in another window. The 4 of us built Monday's board packet. Grant audit. Publisher emails. Northbridge invoices. Closed session phrase leak. Sentinel reimbursement. Timeline. No unsupported accusation. No dramatic villain speech. Facts. Questions. Process. At 2 in the morning, I was still typing. Claire sat in an armchair beside the window, shoes still on, legal pad across her knees. My vision blurred for half a second. I blinked until the lines came back. Claire noticed. Enough. Not yet. Ethan. 1 appendix. You said that 2 appendices ago. I lied. That seems unhealthy for a crisis consultant. Occupational hazard. She went to the kitchen and returned with black coffee. Then stopped. Looked at my hand. It was shaking slightly above the keyboard. She turned around and came back with ice water instead. I stared at it. Betrayal. You're done for 15 minutes. That sounded like an order. It was. She took my phone and placed it face down beside hers. The room fell quiet. City lights blurred through the windows. No speech about burnout. No telling me how I should feel. Claire simply guarded the silence until my hands stopped shaking. 15 minutes later, I reopened the laptop. At 4:12, Miles sent the final monitoring report. The financial rumor had plateaued. The rooftop photograph was spreading faster, but mainly through gossip channels, not institutional finance outlets. At 5:40, Priya confirmed the grant audit showed no unexplained transfers. At 6:05, I saved the final board packet. Done. For now. Claire stood beside the window while sunrise turned the city gold. She handed me black coffee. I took it. Round two? She asked. I looked at the whiteboard. Then the sunrise. Then after breakfast. Her smile was tired and real. That may be the healthiest sentence you've said in 48 hours. At 11:45 Monday morning, we entered Morgan Clean Logistics headquarters. The lobby television showed the company's own building beside a financial ticker. Morgan shares were down 2.2%. Bad, not fatal. Miles waited outside the elevator looking even worse than I did. Claire handed him a coffee. He accepted it like a religious object. You're my favorite CEO. I was already your CEO. That never guaranteed ranking. We entered the prep room. Priya was there. So was Evelyn Shaw, the board's independent chair. Silver hair. Level gaze. No interest in anyone's drama. She looked at me. Mr. Carter, you are here as external crisis advisor. Yes. You address media chain evidence only when asked. Yes. Then Claire. You lead your own defense. Claire nodded. That was always the plan. Miles handed me a printout. Latest. The largest finance aggregator had formally declined the embezzlement allegation pending verification. One practical win before the confrontation. At noon, the boardroom doors closed. 12 directors. Adrian at the far end. Claire at the head. I sat behind her beside Priya. Not beside the chair. Not speaking for the CEO. Adrian began. The issue before us is confidence. Of course. He did not accuse Claire of stealing money outright. Too risky now. Instead, he talked about stock volatility. Leadership judgment. Distraction. Investor confidence. Then the rooftop photograph appeared on the screen. He let it sit there. 1 second. 2, 3. Claire did not look at it. Adrian said, We now have financial allegations and questions about whether company advisors have maintained appropriate professional boundaries. There it was. Just enough shame to make other people imagine the rest. Claire waited until he finished. Then stood. Let's separate the issues. The photograph disappeared. Audited grant records replaced it. No company grant funds were transferred into personal or undisclosed offshore accounts. Next slide. Publisher source chain. The allegation was not discovered independently by financial reporters. It was distributed through a coordinated third-party pitch. Next. Northbridge Advisory. A vendor retained through this board's strategic review budget subcontracted an Estonian media distribution company connected to publishers that received the allegation. Adrian interrupted. Connected is doing extraordinary work in that sentence. Claire looked at him. I agree. The room changed. She clicked again. That is why I am not accusing you of ordering the financial story. Adrian stopped. Claire continued. I'm asking why a vendor controlled through your committee distributed material containing language from a closed board session. She displayed the phrase, Operational consolidation under engineering lead interim oversight. Then the timestamp. Thursday board meeting. Friday media pitch. Evelyn leaned forward. Was that language public? Priya answered. No. Claire moved to the rooftop photograph. This time it appeared uncropped. 27 other people surrounded us. Investors. Employees. Waiters. Context returned instantly. Mr. Carter attended the mixer as my retained crisis advisor. His contract predates the rumor by 3 weeks. Next slide. Sentinel Executive Intelligence. Sentinel previously billed Northbridge for executive observation work under the strategic review budget. The photograph posted last night carries Sentinel agency metadata. Adrian's expression shifted. Barely enough. Executive risk observation is a standard security service. Claire nodded. Then I'm sure you'll support an independent review of why a company-funded surveillance vendor photographed the CEO at an investor event and why that image reached a gossip publisher immediately after preservation notices were issued. Silence. That was the hit. Not an accusation. A question he could not answer safely. Evelyn turned to Adrian. Did your committee authorize surveillance of Ms. Morgan? Not specifically. Did you approve Northbridge's observation budget? My electronic credential approved hundreds of items. Evelyn's expression hardened. That was not my question. Adrian looked at the table. Yes. Claire had him. She did not overplay it. She opened her final section. My recommendation is straightforward. Freeze Northbridge and Sentinel work. Preserve communications. Appoint independent outside counsel. Separate strategic review spending from any single committee chair. Postpone leadership restructuring until the investigation ends. One director asked, "What about the market?" Claire answered immediately. We publish the audited grant records today. We disclose the independent vendor review. We do not speculate about responsibility. And the stock? We accept short-term volatility rather than destabilize the company during an unresolved investigation. That was Claire as CEO, not a client waiting for me to save her. Her plan. Her company. Her decision. Evelyn looked toward me. Mr. Carter, media risk? I stood. Short term. The cleanest message is verified financial transparency plus independent review. If Morgan removes its CEO before determining whether the accusation was amplified by a board-controlled vendor, the headline becomes, Morgan fires CEO after planted rumor. That is materially worse. Adrian leaned back. You're hardly neutral. No. I did not pretend. I'm retained by the company. Then I passed Miles's latest monitoring report to Evelyn. But this data is independent of my opinion. Major financial aggregators are not syndicating the embezzlement allegation. The grant audit is clean. The highest risk story is now governance. Adrian tried one final move. This company cannot be run around the judgment of one CEO and her 28-year-old consultant. Claire's head turned. I expected anger. What she gave him was quieter. My consultant did his job. Then she looked at the directors. I am doing mine. The board voted 9-3. No suspension. No restructuring. Northbridge and Sentinel contracts frozen. Independent investigation authorized. Adrian's strategic review spending authority suspended pending findings. Not fired. Not dragged out. Process. His leverage ended before his career did. When the vote was recorded, Claire closed her folder. Her hand trembled once against the cover, then stopped. Evelyn adjourned the meeting. Miles messaged me from the hallway. Are we rich now? No. Then why did I skip sleep? I smiled. Claire noticed. Miles? Unfortunately. We left the boardroom at 2:07. The crisis was not over. The ambush was... Back in Claire's office, Priya reviewed the public statement. Clean grant audit. Independent investigation. Vendor contracts frozen. No commentary on the gossip photograph beyond one line, stating that unrelated personal insinuations would not influence company governance. Boring. Precise. Exactly right. Claire stood beside the window. The same city that had looked cold through her penthouse glass now burned white with afternoon light. I closed my laptop. That's it. For today, accurate nouns. Claire smiled. You stole that from yourself. I own the rights. A knock sounded. Miles entered carrying 3 coffees. 1 black, 1 normal human coffee, 1 triple espresso for the man currently suing biology. Claire took hers. You did good work, Miles. He stopped joking. Thank you. You found the publisher trail before it reached the major aggregators. I had help. Still yours. Miles nodded, then looked at me. See, leadership, you normally say acceptable. Acceptable. He sighed. I resign. Claire looked at me. Can we afford to lose him? No. Then deny it. Denied. Miles left muttering about labor law. Another release valve. At 4, HR and Priya joined us for a separate conversation. Claire slid a written proposal across the desk. The board wants a 90-day extension of your crisis contract. Same independent reporting line, higher retainer. No permanent executive role unless both sides negotiate later. Professional terms. No romance attached. I read the first page. I'll review it after sleep. Claire nodded. Correct answer. Priya raised one hand. I coach everyone not to sign contracts after 48 hours awake. I closed the folder. Professionally, we were done. At 5:30, Claire faced the cameras. I stayed behind the press line beside Miles. She announced the clean audit, the vendor investigation, the unchanged operating plan. A reporter shouted about the rooftop photograph. Claire did not flinch. Mr. Carter attended the event as a retained company advisor. The photograph is unrelated to the financial allegation and unrelated to today's board decision. Next question. No embarrassment. No over-explaining. Boundaries. The reporter tried again. Claire called on someone else. By Tuesday, the financial headlines were about the investigation, not the photograph. Morgan shares recovered most of Monday's decline. By Wednesday, outside counsel confirmed Adrian's committee credential had authorized both Northbridge's narrative risk project and Sentinel's executive observation work. The review had not yet established that Adrian personally ordered the false allegation, so Claire did not claim he had. 2 weeks later, Northbridge produced internal correspondence. One Adrian Foster email read, "Increase pressure around grant integrity and executive judgment before special board session." That was the evidence the board had been waiting for. Adrian resigned before a formal removal vote. No confession. No dramatic collapse. Documents. Process. Consequences. By then, my 90-day extension had been negotiated through Priya and procurement. I stayed an independent consultant. That suited me. 3 Fridays after the board meeting, I was in my own office at 6:40 when my phone lit up. Claire! For a second, I simply looked at her name. No active crisis. No flagged article. No board alert. No Miles message in all caps. I answered. Something on fire. No. Stock down? No. Foster back from the sea? That would be concerning. Then why are you calling? A pause. Deliberate. Dinner Friday. I looked at the calendar. It is Friday. I'm aware. As CEO? No. As my client? No. As someone with another reputation emergency? Ethan. I leaned back. Claire continued. Dinner, with me, as a date. There it was. Nothing she needed from me. No contract tied to it. No company leverage. Just her choice after the crisis had ended. I looked at the black coffee beside my keyboard. 7:30? 7:30. Where? I picked somewhere without a rooftop. That feels targeted. It is. No whiteboard? Absolutely not. Miles? Not invited. I considered that. Best plan you've made all month. She laughed. See you tonight. Before she hung up, I said, Claire. Yes? 7:30. A softer pause. Then, good. Friday dinner became another one. Then black coffee on Sunday mornings. Then a strange habit where Claire called before difficult board meetings, even when she did not need crisis advice. Sometimes she asked one question. Sometimes none. I eventually learned the difference between being useful and simply being invited. Miles called this historic emotional development. I reduced his annual bonus recommendation by 2%. He called it retaliation. Claire sided with him. Apparently, shieldmates included protecting each other from my management decisions. Months later, Morgan Clean Logistics held another rooftop investor mixer. Same building, same skyline, different quarter. The scandal had been reduced to an ugly footnote in the governance report. Adrian was gone. Northbridge was gone. Claire's electric freight expansion was ahead of schedule. I stood near the same glass railing holding sparkling water with lime. Claire joined me. No crisis expression. No phone in her hand. She looked across the rooftop. You're monitoring. I'm socializing. That is not what your face says. This is my social face. Terrifying. A server passed. Claire took a sparkling water, then looked at the skyline. Do you remember that first night? I remember losing 38 hours of sleep. 31. History will judge. She tapped her glass against mine. Behind us, Miles was explaining Estonia far too enthusiastically to an investor. Claire watched him. He thinks he personally defeated international misinformation. He found 2 pitch emails. Historic pitch emails? Do not encourage him. She smiled. Then her phone vibrated. Old reflex. My attention went straight to it. Claire checked the screen. Nothing changed in her expression. She placed it face down on the cocktail table. What? Calendar reminder. 4. She lifted her glass. Dinner. With? You. I looked at the dark phone. Then at her. The city lights switched on one building at a time behind her. No emergency. No smear campaign. No board vote. No reason for either of us to stay except that we wanted to. Coffee after? She asked. Black. I know. For once, I believed the night would remain exactly as quiet as she intended. What stayed with me wasn't the rumor we killed. It was that once Claire had her company back, she still chose to call me when there was nothing left to fix. The green flag was simple. Competence earned trust, boundaries stayed clear, and the relationship only began after the crisis was over. Please like and subscribe so we can share more stories like this.